Welcome back to Operation 8th Air Force for Turn 9 for Italy. It's July of 1940. Italy has one tech dice to roll for. They're going to try for a radar out of 7 and see if they can finish it. And hopefully they can do better than their German counterparts, which keep swinging and missing. So here we go, radar out of 7. And we get a 12. So good start. So we finish radar, which puts us on par with the British there, so that's a good thing. All right, Italy having a better tech game than the Germans. All right, the Italians had 12 IPP to spend. They're going to spend 5 to finish a fortification. They're going to buy a colonial for 4, so that's 9. And then they're going to have a militia for 2. That's going to save $1, so that's 11 all up. So let's get to combat. Now we've got a few, some are walk-ons, some are other such things. All right, let's start off with the raiding. So we're going to raid into M8 with our seaplane. So we can put this camera down somewhere where it's not in the way. So coming out of Tobruk will be the seaplane, and they'll just raid into this Mediterranean line here, and then they're just going to simply head on back. Then we've got the raiding in A35. So we've got 2 coastals that'll raid in here with the fleet submarine. Then we've got, coming out of Tobruk, we have a fight. Ooh, knocking over these dudes in Rome, that is not good. Okay, so we have one fighter coming out of Tobruk with 2 infantry, and they'll be going into Western Egypt. So, and that fighter from Tobruk is just going to land back in Tobruk. So he's only using up a movement of 1. He'll have plenty of. No, nothing wants to play the game today. He'll have plenty of movement left. All right, so then we've got, what's the next on the agenda? So we've got a transport here that is in port in northern Italy. So utilising the major port, it's going to come back 1 into M6, 2 into M4, and we're going to collect a marine and an infantry that are sitting in Tobruk, if I could reach over. And they're going to land in Malta, and joining them in that battle is going to be the other fighter coming out of Tobruk, using up a movement of 1 and landing back in Tobruk. So that's that. I'm knocking stuff over left and right, which seems to be a theme with me. All right, so the next thing will be 1 infantry from Italian Somaliland. Let's go around the other side of the board, make life easy. So the next battle will be a walk-on. So that's simply just going to be an infantry from Italian Somaliland walking into Tanganyika there. And of course, I never brought any rondels with me, but it doesn't matter. Then we've got the infantry that's in Abyssinia is going to walk on in Sudan. That's also worth nothing. Then we've got the light armour, which is in Italian Somaliland, is going to back up 1 into British Somaliland and capture that. We hear it's nice this time of year in British Somaliland. All right, I think that might be all of our battles. So let's get to rolling. Let's do our rating first. So we've got a seaplanes. Seaplanes would be at a 1+1 because we're just a +1, but they come back to parity for radar, but now I've hit radar, so they're just going to be at a 1. So let's get our green Italian rating dice and our British blue and red. So this is the seaplane, and so it's just going to be 1. So it's going to be +1, so just 1 point of damage there in the Mediterranean line. Then we've got our 2 coastals. So again, it's going to be +1. There's +1 for coastals, and he's got radar, I've got radar, so just +1. So we've got 6 there in A35, which we can get to. So let's do the 2 coastals first at +1. So that looks like a 5 and a 5. So that's 1 point of damage for the first coastal, second coastal. Holy shit, 5s. That's 2, so that's a total of 2. Now we've got the fleet submarine at a +2. And there's nothing there, so that's going to be 4 to 5. So pretty measly. 2 points of rating in a 35. I feel like we're letting the British off pretty lightly here when it comes to rating. Like I seem to remember games where I got rated to high heaven. Anyway, so that's the rating taken care of. So there's 2 there off that Atlantic line, and then yeah, just 1 there down in the Med. A whole 1. Let's see if the Germans can do any better on their turn. So, mind you, the Germans haven't rated all that much either. All right, so we've just got a couple of small battles here. Let's do Western Egypt. So Western Egypt just has the 1 lone militia in there. So it's going to be 2 at a 1 for my infantry and a fighter versus his 1 at a 2. So let's get to doing that. Let's get rid of these rating dice. And so we've got 2 at a... Let's get a better angle here. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. All right, so we've got 2 at 1 for the infantry. Attacking, there's no first strikes, nothing there. And then we've got our fighter at a 6. That's a 4, so that's hits. And then he's got his defending militia at a 2. Ooh, lucky. That's a 3. So that misses. So we take Western Egypt with 2 infantry. The fighter will return back to Tobruk. And that is worth a buck. So we're going to go back up to 11. And the Brits are going to go to 26. Whilst I'm here, this might be a good time to get some rondels going on. I'll do that so we can mark Western Egypt. I'll take that militia off. And we've got Tanganyika, Sudan, and British Somaliland as our walk-ons. Okay, let's get to the other battle. So the other battle will be an amphibious assault. So we've got the Marine and 1 infantry coming back, and we've got 1 militia. Of course, I forgot to look if Malta is mountainous. Bear with me 1 second. I don't think it is, but I don't want to roll it out and then screw it up and get PBF'd. So let's quickly check Malta, and that is in Europe. European regions. Someone probably knows off the top of their head. I don't. Where is it? Spain, America. Sorry about this. I will get to it very quickly. I'm just trying to find it. That's Crete, of course. You would think Malta would be in there with Crete. I bet I've gone straight past it. Okay, it's not jumping out at me, so what I'm going to suggest is that I will deal with it as a mountainous territory. It may not be, but better to be safe than sorry. So there's no first strikes. He's got the 1 militia, so we've got 2. We'll just say we've got 2 at 1. All right, so this is the Marine and the infantry first round of combat. So it wouldn't have mattered anyway. And then we've got a fighter at a 6. And that's a 1, so that hits. And then his militia in return, 12. All right, so things for me to do is to research and figure out in future what Malta is. Okay, the transport will go in port in Malta, and the fighter will return to Tobruk with the other fighter in the non-combat phase. So we take Malta with a Marine and an infantry with a transport in port there. Okay. We'll see if Hambone tries to get it back. All right. Seaplane's going to non-com and return back to Tobruk. Okay, let me check my notes, see what else I needed to do. Okay, the infantry in Cyrenaica is going to back up into Tobruk and join the card, as is the motorised. No need to be in there at the moment. All right, over here, just making sure if there's anything I want to do. Right, place units. All right, this infantry then in Eritrea is going to push up one into Nubia there. So we've got one infantry and a cav in Nubia. That was captured last territory, so that's not a problem. And I believe I don't move any of that. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so we should be at, I don't think I adjusted for Malta, so we should now be at 12, and the UK will be at 25 after the capture of Malta, if we are right. All right, let's get to place goods. All right, so we're just finishing the fortification there in Rome. No great surprise there. All right, the Colonial will go into Tobruk, join the card, and then also the militia will come down here, and that'll be in Abyssinia there. Or do I want to put it somewhere else? No, I can stay there, it's fine. All right, let's get to income. So our income is 12, we saved 1. So we'll collect, so we'll have 13 IPP in the bank for next turn. And I'll sort that out now, and then we'll do a quick disposition and go from there. 1, 2, 3. All right, so let's start up here at this end of the board. So in port in Western Germany, we've got battleship, 2 heavy cruisers, light cruiser, 4 destroyers, fleet submarine, TBD, that hasn't changed. And then we've got in Sea Zone A35 fleet submarine, 2 coastals. Not having a very good raiding game this game. In Malta, we have a marine and infantry, and in port will be a transport. So let's put that there. We've got in Tobruk for the Italian stuff. We have 2 fighters. We have 2 infantry and a seaplane. That's all the Italian stuff. In Western Egypt, we have 2 infantry, Tripolitania, 1 militia, Tripoli, 2 infantry, Nubia, 1 infantry, 1 cav. In Sudan, 1 infantry, Tanganyika, 1 infantry, British Somaliland, 1 light armor, Italian Somaliland, 1 infantry, 1 militia, that's Japanese. Abyssinia has a militia. And in Italy, just the Italian stuff. So the Italian stuff in Italy, we have in Rome, fortification, 3 militia, 2 mountain infantry, 1 infantry. Italian stuff in northern Italy is militia, 3 infantry. And I don't think I've missed anything, hopefully not. All right, I'll turn it over to Bruce now for KMT and the USA. Thanks for watching.